Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. Welcome. I'm Pilar. Well, Maria Pilar. I'll change my name to Pilar. Together with Michelle, Mina, and Marcus, we are hosting this breakout session. We got together because we were all interested in how to advance sustainability from an interdisciplinarity perspective. And we designed this discussion to share our different stories, but also not necessarily finalized stories. So we are facing challenges. We are also encountering new ideas, meeting people in our quest for advancing sustainability from an interdisciplinarity perspective. So what we want to do in this hour is to first share some basic ideas about interdisciplinarity, basic concepts for all of us to be familiar with this idea, and then share some of our stories in different universities and research centers, and then use the rest of the time to discuss with you these challenges, these ideas, the benefits, the needs of moving towards an interdisciplinarity approach for sustainability. So I will pass on to Mina, who will start. I don't know if maybe we can, because we are only 15 people, should we introduce ourselves, or maybe once we start the discussion, everyone can just like present him or herself so we can meet.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Pilar, for opening, and welcome everyone also on my behalf. I will be using the first couple of words for sort of formally introducing some backgrounds and some concepts for helping our discussions. I'm Minna Halme. I'm professor of sustainability management at Aalto University Business School, and I have been working with these topics now about 30 years, and the last 10 plus years of it quite in an interdisciplinary fashion. And I will be speaking about that a little bit later, but let me now first share some ideas with you to begin with. And here we go. Can you all see my screen? Great. So we are talking now about, for the next hour or so, about building interdisciplinarity in education and research. And the first question, of course, that is always good to ask is why are we doing that? What is the point of interdisciplinarity? It's of course much more than that. At the moment, you can more easily in some countries get money for interdisciplinary research. There are actually quite profound reasons for going for interdisciplinarity, and that is that tackling the major, the so-called grand sustainability challenges requires that we have a systemic understanding of the world in which we live in and work at. And in addition to having that systems view, which in itself requires interdisciplinarity, also collectively creating knowledge between members of different sectors of society is necessary for tackling the grand challenges. And this fortunately has been recognized not only by sustainability science and sustainability scientists, but also increasing number of management scholars are understanding that, and we are seeing top journal articles on the topic to date. What I would like to share with you, so that we are a bit on, let's say, a same page when we talk about interdisciplinarity, is the point that actually there are different levels of working with others, with scientists from different fields, and also with practitioners across borders. And you sometimes hear the term multidisciplinary research, and that's the approach where basically researchers from one or more disciplines are working together, but more in the sort of a parallel sense, considering the same research problem area, but from their own perspectives. And usually in these kind of situations, also the researchers primarily publish in their own disciplinary journals. But as you go along and go toward interdisciplinary research, what that means is that you actually start combining knowledge and also combining at least some methods from 2 or more disciplines to advance knowledge and to advance the solutions, ideas and proposals for the future, which go beyond the scope of a single discipline. And then finally, you may have also heard and used the term transdisciplinary research. And what's meant by that is that it's interdisciplinarity combined with going beyond the academic knowledge, integrating also knowledge that comes from non-scientific stakeholders. And with this, the idea is to broaden the understanding of the problem and the problem area, and also then of the future solutions that are possible. And I think that I'll just finish up here, and in a little while I'll share some experiences that we've had from these at the Aalto University context, but I'll hand it over to you, Pilar, now, and especially Michelle, I think, first.
Thank you for that great introduction, Mina. I really appreciate it. So I guess the next section is that we're going to give you some case examples or some challenges and some ideas of what's been happening at different universities before we open it up to everybody to offer ideas, and so that we can all learn from each other. But the one thing that I wanted to do was to identify some challenges. So some challenges in getting to that interdisciplinary, or even better, transdisciplinary way of working, whether it's research or teaching or both. And it's these challenges, and there's 3 in particular that we're coming across at my university, University of Amsterdam, where I'm in the business school. Up until now, sustainability has been done very much disciplinary. So we have multiple centers in different schools, and it's only been recently that our school has decided that there's been grant money being made available, as Minna said, to work together with across disciplines, and that there is ideas out there to have minors or have educational programs that cross disciplines as well. And the things that I've been working on some of these efforts, and the things that I've been finding are, number one of the big challenges are language issues and vocabulary issues. So it's very difficult to speak to other people in other disciplines because, as we become trained, we learn different languages and different ways of seeing the world. And so communication is something that you have to come across and find ways to understand each other, and it requires a lot of patience. The second challenge that we've run into is resources, and at University of Amsterdam is a very unorganized university. I think most of the functions and most of the resources are spun down to the level of disciplines. And then finding ways and finding resources to be able to work together is a challenge as well. And it's actually taken some central university level initiatives to make funding available to push people to cross these disciplines that has helped, get these resources flowing to do this. And there have been some beyond the university, some national level and European level and international level grant programs that have actually been pushing this, which is really wonderful. And then the third challenge is this idea of authority, and not only being authorities in our own fields, but also, who takes the leadership role in any kind of initiative. So far, up until recently, when there weren't very many cross-disciplinary resources available, it was really the true believers in sustainability who were doing a lot of the work, much of it unpaid, because we really, want this to happen. And as resources have been made available, other people have come out, to work in this area and assert authority over areas. And so we've been noticing some sharp elbows, which has been interesting as we've been going through this. And so those were three challenges that I wanted to highlight that we're up against. So, and I'm really eager to hear about maybe how you've solved some of these issues.
Okay, then I think I'll go next. Welcome from my side also. I'm Markus Wagner. I'm Professor of Innovation and Sustainable Management at the University of Augsburg. You see the campus a little bit in my back. And thanks, Mina and Michelle, for this great introduction and in a sense showing what the issues can be. And our university is probably halfway through them, but still encounters the other half. Historically, our leadership has developed this notion of a network university. And the idea is that really in Germany, usually you have a number of faculties, quite similar maybe to Amsterdam, that these faculties should interact and ideally do interdisciplinary research. And historically, we have an environmental science center that has been doing that for around 20 years, I would think. And they interestingly started out of the business school context with initial work on environmental accounting. But right now they've moved quite a bit, and just this year we've started an international doctoral program on environmental humanities. Now we are kind of at the other end almost, and we have a strong focus on science and humanities in this center. And at the same time, through a federal grant by the state of Bavaria, we now will set up a Center for Climate Resilience, which is even larger. It's going to be holding 20 professorships, which then will be in the different faculties, and it's really spanning the whole area from science to social sciences to humanities. And I've been thrown into this process in a way, or pulled into it by being involved in the leadership of the Environmental Science Center. And it's quite interesting for me and you, and this was also one of my motivations for the workshop, to see a number of issues arising, like some of the ones that were described, or in our context, for example, I find there's quite some coopetition. It's a little bit like what Michelle described in terms of resources and authority, and that on the one hand, the leadership of the university wants this networking, it's pushing for interdisciplinarity, and on the other hand, we have these faculties, including the business school, which are involved in these centers and in further initiatives, and they also have on the teaching side their own sustainability specializations. But obviously there are very different agenda targets that need to be balanced, and there's tension. And for me, one interesting aspect I really also would like to discuss in the remainder of the breakout session is how to realize impactful interdisciplinarity. So on the one hand, I think everybody is increasingly having interdisciplinarity on their agenda, be it in teaching or be it in research. And on the other hand, coming to the point that Tima made in the introductory opening, it's really about that we want to ultimately create an impact in terms of contributing to sustainability. And so still in my case context, there are a number of questions how to best achieve that. And that's something that I really feel we need to learn from others as well. So I really look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Marcus, Michelle, and Mina. I will share my story. I'm at Universidad Icesi in Colombia, in South America. And our story is more of a bottom-up approach. I work in a university, so we have different faculties and members of engineering, social sciences, and law and biology, and myself from the management school. We found each other because we had interest in sustainability. So we wanted to push the agenda of sustainability within the university. So we gathered together and we started developing many different things around sustainability. And we came out, I will share with you with a master, an interdisciplinary master in sustainability. I'm sharing this is in Spanish, I'm sorry, but just for you to get the idea that we co-created this master and we presented it to the university, and they were really happy that professors from different schools gathered to propose something. And this has created some sort of dynamic around sustainability. And it also relies on the fact that we all believe in sustainability and adhere to sustainability from a personal point of view, and we teach sustainability related topics. So in this journey of creating this, we have encountered like very many challenges, as Michelle and Marcus mentioned, in terms of leadership, how we move this from being a collective to something that is administratively run and managed, and you have these problems. We also have some language issues, but since we are only now beginning, I think we will be facing these as we evolve. And well, I could teach a course on circular economy with a colleague from the engineering school. I'm also an engineer, so it helps, but we encountered difficulties in terms of the vocabulary and the perspective. I tend to use more critical, qualitative approaches, and she's more in a positivistic approach based on engineering. So these kind of barriers, we face these kind of barriers, but in the end, we have found that there is a need for the public to see that sustainability, or they adhere to this idea that we have developed, that sustainability needs interdisciplinarity, and to advance, as Mina mentioned, grand challenges, we need to integrate these different perspectives. And we do that each semester in the master. We have what we call an integrative project that builds on problem-based learning, and we give them a real challenge, and they have to build together the solutions with the help of professors from different disciplines. So in that sense, they are exposed to the difficulties of relating to other disciplines. So in this first, we started the master this semester. So we have lawyers, we have engineers, we have someone from biology, and we have an economist. So we think we have an opportunity to make these people work together, and we hope that we can advance these issues from like gathering the different perspectives. But part of why I'm here is because this is not yet solved, so we don't have a checklist on how to address these challenges, and this is an ongoing reflection. So I hope in what follows, we can discuss with you how to overcome these challenges, hear from you if you have experiences on interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, or multidisciplinarity. But before that, Mina will share her story too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pilar. Let me start the story from the teaching perspective. I'm co-founder and also teacher and member of the board in our interdisciplinary creative sustainability master program, which has been up and running since 2010, but it was planned and tested as a minor 3 years before that. So it's nearly 15 years ago now that we started making that, and that involves us from the business school. Then there are designers from the School of Arts and Design, and material scientists from the School of Chemical Engineering. And along the way, also water engineering has been playing a minor part in the program. And this creative sustainability master program is at the moment, according to the rankings, one of the leading ones in its field, and it's also been noted by the recent Financial Times top world-class programs on sustainability. And if I now look back in, like, you know, how did it get to where it is now, I think one of the really important things has been the dedication of some 10 core professors from the different schools, who I would say, and I'm included as well, as Michelle said, you know, using a lot of, in a way, unpaid time, which not necessarily gave any immediate merits at the least, but it's more that, you know, you see that this is one of the super important things that you can do for the world. And now it is actually the second most sought after master program from the business school perspective, because the students enter from the business, from the design, or from the material science perspective. And then they have some disciplinary studies and some are joint studies. And as Michelle said, we also have the challenge-based modes of learning, so that the students have project courses which actually take them to the field, and they work together with practitioner organizations in order to solve real life challenges as part of their studies. Not all of their studies are of that kind, but some parts are. And then if I progress toward the research area, what I can see also now reflecting back is that building up the master program has been a really useful platform for creating interdisciplinary research projects as well. Before the master program was there, I was already involved with some of my colleagues with minor projects. But as we learned to know each other and developed more of the joint language, and with the help of that also more trust to each other, it's been possible to build such large research projects, which are, if I say large, I mean several million euros, lasting from 4 to 5 years research programs, which not programs, projects, which I've been now running leading one like that, and I'm currently leading another one. And there I think it would be very difficult to go to that magnitude unless there were some of the people who you already know from other connections, for instance, from teaching, and you have some of the joint language, and you have some of that trust going on. And then if to finish up my story, I was also a co-founder and leader of Aalto Sustainability Hub for 4 years, and that's a university-wide research center or network. It didn't really have like specific location except for the coordinators, but it was, as Markus was saying, a bit more sort of a network-based organization, but with a formal structure of a board and advisory board, and coordinators and such things. And that was a really really interesting experience in the sense of learning how to go beyond those super sustainability enthusiasts and how to build to the second tier, those that are quite interested, but whose main interest still is their own disciplinary advantages. And as that was progressing, and eventually we had about 500 members of the Aalto organization, I mean the faculty and from other staff involved. It turned out that the momentum had come so big that as the university was building a new strategy, which started from the beginning of this year, sustainability was actually made the core of the university strategy. And now the leadership, the university leadership wanted that sustainability, as it is in the core, we no longer should have like a separate hub, but it should be, you know, kind of in a way more like everywhere and organized in the line organization. And now the interesting question from this competition perspective to me at the moment is like, okay, where do we go now? Because now it seems that it's in the core, but I'm not yet sure that it will be a success story from the perspective of the impact that we will have. But let's see. And I think I'll finish up here, and now we are ready to go for the discussion and to the questions and sharing of experiences.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mina. Ian had a comment on maybe, Ian, you would like to develop more your idea on interdisciplinary synthesis.
Yeah, thanks. That's really fascinating. I think one of there seems to be a barrier that often common is that you have interdisciplinary research is relatively straightforward, but interdisciplinary teaching often breaks down into separate disciplinary teaching, and there's so I'm really interested in how you overcame that barrier, particularly things like preferences for assessment, prior kind of knowledge that actually is kind of built in to do that, and often even with the good intentions to do interdisciplinary teaching and education, it tends to default back to your people's discipline, where they're comfort from. Just wondered if anyone's got any kind of tips on how to kind of avoid that, you know, so the engineers start to teach engineering and the accountants teach accounting and economics teach economics.
Thank you, Ian, for asking the very good question. If you won't mind me sharing the kind of first insight on that, I think one of the things that has helped us a lot is that we have the so-called capstone course concept, which is half a year long, as I mentioned, a challenge-based course where students that are from different backgrounds of the program, like business design and engineering, are coming together, and also the teachers of the course are coming from different disciplines. So that's definitely been one of the things. And then another one is that we gather student feedback on the interdisciplinarity topic, and like, you know, how well do you understand what is being taught in the different courses? How well is the teacher conversant with let's say, you know, the sort of conversant with students that are not from his or her own discipline. And then in the large, we have these teacher meetings big ones 3 times a year, smaller ones 4 times a year. And there we actually go through the feedbacks from the different courses. And then we discuss about, like how to steer the content and the teaching methods so that they would be understandable also for the others. And I'd say that over the years, we've become to have not only tolerance, but even the aim of being understandable to all and still staying academic and not just, sort of a speaking lay person stuff completely. So it's those two things that come to my mind, and it's been a long sort of path. It's been a process of learning, and surely still continues.
I don't know if anyone else wants to share. There is some discussion about how to start the conversation, and Okan share an insight on seminars, and Marcus also mentioned. I don't know, Okan, if you want to share your experience.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've been struggling with interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity. Now it's more clear for me. Thanks, Mina. What we were trying to do is, we're a small university. We only have 8,000 students. And like opening a master's program is a big step for us. But what we try to do is, as I said in the chat, is to create occasions. To bring people from different disciplines together and just to initiate a dialogue. But unfortunately we failed. I mean, we had, I think, 7 or 8 seminars open to only postgrads and professors. The discussions were somehow shallow during the seminars. And as we discussed in the chat, as Marcus put it, I mean, the seminars didn't take off. I mean, we hoped that people would come together and see the potential, like the grants fostering interdisciplinarity and the potential for publication, etc. But it didn't work. Even the seminars, during the seminars, we struggled quite a lot as moderators, picking ideas from people's mouths. But it really didn't work. And I wonder if you have any, masters is a great occasion, creating a masters. I mean, whether you have planned anything or initiated something. I mean, how did you bring these different disciplines, different people, how did you bring them together? And did it take off? Because we failed, unfortunately.
Yes, maybe I can just say a little on expanding on what I wrote already in the chat. I mean, I've also seen that these connection seminars are often a start because they're rather voluntary, and people can self-select, and you get people that are quite strongly interested, ideally. In Augsburg, with the Environmental Science Center, the initial starting point was that it was supposed to be, in a sense, the nexus of all environmental research at the university, but there was, of course, around 20 years ago, when there was very little institutionalized environmental research at German universities, at least. So it was easy to, in a way, set that up, and there was not a lot of concrete competition to the faculties. And certainly, I think, especially if these initiatives, interdisciplinary initiatives, are successful, oftentimes you get this competition to the faculties, because suddenly, Mina, you put it also a little bit like it's a second tier, people that are interested, but oftentimes the challenge is then also that some people are interested because it's promising to join grant applications, and others are maybe more interested because they really burn for the topic. And certainly that's a tension. I mean, it can be navigated, but in a way, from our experience, what is important is then to develop incentive structures that get the right self-selection in the process. So you really want to get people into these interdisciplinary efforts that ideally stay in with a strong intrinsic motivation, that's staying for the long term, that are willing to maybe also invest a certain amount of time, like 4 or 5 years, to develop larger grant applications, because ultimately that's really what I think is needed if you want to have a self-maintaining center. But I also realize that this is institutionally very different. I think in the Anglo-Saxon countries, it often has to do more also with grant funding becoming available. And just from our last center, I can say that's certainly also something that helps a lot. If you really can get already central federal grants for a larger project, that is of course a good basis to attract people and to create incentive structures that then have to be done, of course, in a way that they really support the interdisciplinarity.
If I may continue on this one, when we started what I call the final and the largest phase with building the Aalto Sustainability Hub, we organized what we called the Schools Present Their Sustainability Research seminars, which I think are similar to an extent to what you are talking about. And there we had really handpicked people from the different schools and in terms of who the core people, and then we asked them who others they could suggest that will present their research, and in this way we opened up the doors for the other schools, and for us the schools are like the faculties. We opened the doors for others to learn from what is going on. And then we also, and I used a lot of my personal, I don't know what it is, influence there to give the instructions that please keep your seminar presentations at the terms of as if you were talking to your master educated grandmother, that don't make it a scientific presentation that you would give to your colleagues, but for others. And most of the time it worked really well. And then when the example was there, then it sort of started to feed in the learning, the lesson learned, that okay, it has to be as if I was talking to intelligent practitioners. And with the help of those seminars, we have this seed funding system at Aalto, that you can apply for seed funding for building a larger research project. And from those seminars, a number of the seed funding projects started. And that sort of also gave confidence to not only to the enthusiasts, but also to the second tier people that, okay, serious stuff is going on here, and then some of them became successful also in terms of the larger research funding, external research funding. And finally, I wanted to say still about this incentive structure thing from the teaching side. What was an important shift from at our university was the time when the university leadership started to reward the schools for educating students from other schools at their courses. Previously, there was no such incentive, so everybody was counting their own credit units. But when the incentive system came up, that you also get rewarded, and I think there was some like extra sort of 1.5 times if the credit units are by a student who is from another school, and that was kind of sort of a generally, and this was not done only for sustainability reasons by the university leadership, but for other reasons as well. That there was so much kind of a, let's say, push from the students and also push from the practitioner stakeholders that our students should be more equipped to have like broader views, and that served also the sustainability purpose in the sense that suddenly it was rewarded that you have other than your own school's students at the courses.
Thank you, Lami. I've jotted down all. We'll see how it goes. But the incentive structure, creating an incentive structure, is my take, I think, from this session. Thank you very much.
I don't know if anyone else wants to share an experience or a project or something they have been working on, or a challenge or something that resonates with your current situation or past situation.
I have a question to raise, and I think in terms of incentive structures, I think one of the challenges that we face in the business school is the accreditation structure. And there is a limit to how interdisciplinary we are allowed to be, and still make sure that the students get everything in that they need to get in order for them to satisfy the criteria that is required for us to remain accredited as an institution. And so I think it would be really wonderful if there was an alternative accreditation structure out there for sustainability education. Maybe there is one and I don't know of it. I don't know if you have any ideas about that, Mina, or anyone else.
Well, for in our case, I don't know, it's too hot and actually, honestly, middle of my holidays to remember the ranking system, but I'll give it to you later on, in which we are either, between from 4 to 7 annually with the Creative Sustainability Master Program. So that ranking, that also ranks other master programs. And so our master program is like one of the highest ones from the whole university. And that definitely is one of the things that has been very helpful for keeping the good reputation and the resources for the program. And then as a little sort of a push of luck, I would say, was the fact when Financial Times started tracing both research and teaching that is sustainability oriented, coming from the business schools. So then when we got a specific nomination at that list, that gave a lot of, let's say, bonus points in the minds of our dean and some of the other decision makers within the university. And now when the program is like the second most sought after program at the business school, meaning that, in relation to the how many places there are, how many students are applying, that has really again changed the scene toward more positive. So what I would say is that in our system, I find that it hasn't been so much the student side that's been the kind of, the business school accreditation issue, but what keeps being an issue for our non-tenured younger faculty is the top publications question, like FT50 journals. That keeps being that's the itch. And although they are increasingly publishing either corporate responsibility or sustainability in business topic articles, it still doesn't naturally host interdisciplinary views. So what I see is that from the tenuring perspectives for the junior scholars, that's the most tricky part of all of this, not really accreditation, but more the meritation issue.
If I may jump in, my name is Michelle Gabriel. I'm from a very small new school in New York, Glasgow Caledonian New York College. We have a kind of budding center, and we're a master's only institution right now. And I'd like to throw out our example which is by no means wildly successful, but we kind of are not, I would suggest you look at what I'm about to say as kind of like how we look at emerging economies for innovation. We don't have the institutional clout. We don't have a lot of the things that all of you are speaking to, and thus the barriers too. But we have to invent often our means for interdisciplinariness and also just credibility, frankly, because we do not have a school of scholars that are contributing to our research endeavors. We are overutilizing our students and their research to help develop this. But what we think about as interdisciplinary is also outside of academia. So I know you guys are speaking a lot about how you're getting like the disciplines within your university or your college system, which is super important. And we think about that too in our wider university network, because we are part of a bigger network. But also, how do we leverage the wider world? So part of my job, I'm the director of strategic partnerships there. I'm also a faculty member, is bringing in kind of interesting organizations to support our faculty and to support our student research work. And that winds up kind of creating very interesting interdisciplinary outcomes through research projects, through white papers, through various, endeavors. And then eventually snowballing to offering us enough credibility to then do interesting interdisciplinary stuff. Again, we have our wider university network, so that's kind of the other disciplines we're working towards cooperating with. And something I want to specifically throw out is, obviously, we have our accredited master's programs. Those are fine. That's like a very traditional pathway. But we are increasingly exploring non-accredited certificate programs in sustainability, because we're in a very dense market for other colleges. New York City is highly competitive for education, and we are a tiny little organization that is in downtown Manhattan. And we are finding in other organizations too, we're seeing NYU do these things, Parsons School, various other kind of nascent sustainability programs to offer the working professionals in our city access to education in their fields that might not care whether it's accredited, frankly. They are not going back to school. They're looking for really tangible outcomes. And so that's allowed us to create interesting interdisciplinary and test things that might ultimately become master's programs. So we're doing something at the intersection of data and sustainability. And that's allowed us to kind of bring in our data science group from Glasgow, but I'm bringing in industry convening organizations to help us develop that curriculum. So just some things as examples of kind of how to think outside the box, because we have to, that you might bring to your own institutions.
May I? Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we couldn't realize it. But we were planning to found a fellowship program focusing on NGOs. Because in Turkey, people in NGOs usually overwork. 15-hour day is a normal for an NGO worker in Turkey. And with this huge refugee crisis in Turkey, they're doing amazing jobs. But what we observed is in NGOs in Turkey, due to this hard workload, they lose the strategic macro thinking vision. So what we thought was just offering 3, 4, 5, depending on funding, fellowship positions for a year, and bring different fellows from working on different disciplines, working with refugees, ecology and stuff, and ask them what they need and match them with students and faculty and allow them to work collaboratively for a year. It will also, in your case, Michelle, maybe it may help you to utilize the student base that you have with white papers, with grants and scholars, but just like with our connections idea, it's just in theory, and I'm not sure whether it's going to work or not. But bringing fellows from different NGOs, or I don't know whether you have different type of organizations in NYU, in New York, it may work. It may be an innovative way for you to utilize the strengths that you have in your institution.
Thank you. That's great.
We still have more 10 minutes. Is anyone, does anyone else wants to share an experience, as Michelle shared something that is not necessarily in the same line as we have shared? I don't know.
Hi, it's
Erica? Yes.
Hi, yeah. So I just wanted to share, this is so helpful. And I'm calling it now more like a toddler center, I guess. It's not just a baby brand new center, but it's 3 or 4 years old. So we are charged with being cross-disciplinary. We're in the business school, but we're supposed to be responsive to, inclusive of, and really supporting all faculty, students across all of our colleges at UMass Lowell. That has been challenging, and we've had to ramp up to it. We're ramping up to it still. So we have done some things. We're fortunate to have funding, and we have to actually use our money each year because it's in sort of an endowment. So we've been able to offer fellowships across colleges to different faculty in different colleges who are working on sustainability or corporate responsibility or ethics type stuff. What we're now supposed to be refocusing on, because this is what the donor wants, and we're sort of a donor-driven organization still. We are independent, but we're also trying to satisfy a donor who gave a lot of money. She really wants us to be focusing on our students. So for the next year, we need to be focusing heavily on the student population, in particular the undergraduate student population, and trying to do that in what I hope is a transdisciplinary way. So my question is if anyone has had experience with offering transdisciplinary student type programs around sustainability or sustainability oriented themes. And one thought I'm having is that we orient around the SDGs and do a cross campus sort of hackathon workshop type of thing. But that's kind of my question for everyone, is if they have any experience with that type of thing.
Erica, I'm not sure if I completely respond to your question, but when you said the SDGs, we actually had about 3 years ago a hackathon on how to connect the SDGs with the ordinary university education better. And a few things resulted from it. And I think that the most influential one of them is that we now are marking all courses. If they have any SDG contents in them, they are marked with the SDG. Maximum is 3 SDGs, which they touch upon. And of course, not all courses have that, but it's now the students have the opportunity of looking at, okay, what kind of SDGs topics are being discussed within the course. And of course, this is still, it's in so early phases. The practice has been ongoing now for 1.5 years, that the quality of, how much of the SDG topic is there, if there is the SDG label in the course. But the thing is that it's kind of automatically in the front of the eyes of the student. And now we are trying to push that also in the student feedback from the courses. There would be a question regarding how well were the SDGs being involved, integrated into the course topic. And in that way, that would also give a signal toward the teachers. But this is indeed something that that came out from a hackathon originally. The idea came from there, and then we needed to cultivate it further.
Thank you.
Well, we have 4 minutes, so maybe what we can do to close this session is I created a mirror board, but I don't think we have enough time. So maybe using the chat, everyone can share a takeaway or a key idea or a key question that or a key answer that he got during this session, and then we will gather this and try to sum up and send it to you so you get something concrete after the session.